Hey YouTube, I'm Snowpoke. Updates are among the most important aspects of the lifecycle of a Splatoon release. Ever since Splatoon 1 released, Nintendo has gone with a system of introducing a fun but bare-bone experience and then adding more and more features on top of it. Those updates came in varying sizes. Sometimes there would be just a bug fix or a balance patch. Other times we would get an entirely new game mode or mechanics updates that add up to make the game much fairer. If you want to know more about the history of those updates, check out my previous video where I created a tier list of all feature updates in Splatoon 2. What I want to talk about in this video though are the 3 updates that I identified as the very best updates. By the way, you'll find if you want to watch this video without watching my previous one. This is not a 2-part series, it's just 2 videos that complement each other. With that out of the way, let's start with number 3. Version 3.1 didn't give us any new weapons. It didn't give us new maps. But what it did give us were, well, playable Octolings and Octo Expansion. I'm at a bit of an awkward position here, because Octo Expansion isn't actually a free update. That's why I'm excluding all single player aspect from this assessment. If I were to actually consider the entirety of Octo Expansion, this would easily be the best update. But even if you look at just the multiplayer aspect, Octo Expansion changes a lot in this game. Like, I love the hairstyles they added in version 2.0. But Octo Expansion gives us even more than that. The choice between an Octoling and an Inkling not only changes your look and your hairstyle, it also comes with different animations, different win-lose animations, sound effects, different icons, and what is that? Even Paul and Marina greet you differently. I can understand that it might be weird seeing a semi-competitive player like me rank this update that highly because of cuteness reasons, but at the end of the day, I play this game because it's fun. And giving me new characters that I adore, reminding me of a now expanded world, and giving the community so many things to talk and imagine about, this game has become much more fun with the release of version 3.1. If you like actual changes to the gameplay though, look no further than number 2. Version 2.0.0 brought us, well, cute new hairstyles, but also added highly requested features. Many of those are things that we now consider basic. In between battles, you could now change your weapons, and in Turf War, you could do so without even leaving the lobby. If you play private battles with random maps, you could now choose which maps would be randomly chosen from. And most importantly, the game became fairer with how it counts disconnects. Have you noticed how when a team member in rank disconnects, sometimes the match counts and sometimes it doesn't? Back when version 2.0.0 came out, the rule was that a match would not count if the DC happened in the first 2 minutes of the match. But first, what even is a disconnect? There are 2 ways that you can disappear from a game. Either your connection to the other player drops and you get removed from the game immediately, or you don't move for an entire minute, and in that case you would also be removed from the match. You might be noticing a problem here though. Well, if your teammate needs to DC within 2 minutes for the match to not count, but you need 1 minute of no input, then unless the person stopped playing in the very first minute, all teammates will lose points after the inevitable loss. And that's frustrating. Version 2.0.0 made it so that the game keeps in mind when the player actually stopped playing, and will judge whether or not to count the match based on that. Some other neat changes are that in this update, they increased the level cap from 50 to 99, and also added the whole prestige system. It would also now allow you to use your amiibos to take pictures with your characters on ranked stages. By the way, these were all changes that weren't advertised in the release trailer. For version 2.0.0, here are the actual headlines of the update. 100 new gear items, 4 amazing new music tracks, a new Salmon Run map called Salmon at Smokeyard, and a beautiful map by the name of Mako Mart. The trailer for this update also contains footage of the Gluga dualies and the Squeezer, which are weapons that I personally find a lot of fun to play. But at this point what you might be asking is, what update has improved the game the most? And that's version 4.1.0. What did this one introduce? Most of you might know update 4.1.0 as the one that gave us the Booyah Bomb, but there was more than that. Before we get to the big change though, there were other changes that were brought with this update. Besides the booyah bombs, we also got fizzy bombs, and 4 new weapons that use those bombs. Remember the awesome music from the 4.0 trailer? Well, the 4 new tracks, they were also introduced in version 4.1. But honestly, that's not enough to make an update the best update ever, is it? After all, both versions 2.0 and 3.0 came with changes of this caliber, and then even added 100 new gear items on top, and even more changes to the game. So what makes version 4.1 so special? Well, let's talk about game design for a second. One common concept in game design is that of gameplay loops. In games, you usually perform actions over and over again, in slight variations, while you try to achieve broader goals, which also repeat in slight variations. Here's how that would look like for a Zelda game. The smallest repeating loop is that of fights, that's the micro loop. Those fights happen in a dungeon room, and that's the medium loop. And those dungeon rooms have to be traversed in order to obtain key items, which would be the macro loop, the largest loop. To translate this into Splatoon, I would say the micro loop is a battle between players, the medium loop is a match, and the macro loop would be a mode rotation. The smaller the loop, the more often the player will encounter it, and the more important it is for it to be engaging and rewarding. Many of the bigger Splatoon updates, they operate on the macro loop, giving us more weapons and more maps. Those give us more strategical options to think through during a rotation, and together with the multiple battle themes, also prevents the game from feeling stale. But since there aren't a lot of changes on the micro loops, what gets me really excited are the changes on the medium loops. Making the matches fair and engaging, it helps so much in providing a fun experience, and that's much more important than just having more content. For example, Turf War has the same mini loops as Ranked, the battle mechanics are the same, and you have the same weapons, the same maps, the same music, and during Splatfest even a similar ranking system. So the macro loop can be very similar too. But the different design is on the medium loop, the matches. And for me, that makes Ranked feel so much more fun than Turf War, because I prefer the design of the medium loop here. Well, and that's why I get way more excited about changes on the match mechanics of the game than about new weapons or maps. So to come back to version 4.1, here's the sentence in the patch note that single-handedly propels this update to the very top of my tier list. When playing ranked or league battles as a pair, your rank meter, X power or league power will no longer decrease when playing with fewer members on your team due to internet disconnections for an even shorter period than was previously the case. I mentioned before that the time limit for DCs was 3 minutes. If a teammate would disconnect or stop playing after that, the match would count and you will lose points. But in a game as fast-paced as Splatoon, surviving for 3 minutes against a team with more members than you is a nearly impossible feat. It hardly ever happens. And there were no exceptions. Having a heavy lead and then losing to a DC, it's not rare, and then losing points was so frustrating. You just don't want to get punished for something that is completely out of your control. And it even made matches without DC scary. See a team member move weirdly? Ooh, better hope they don't disconnect, cause then your points are gone. The disconnects in this game, of course, they're still annoying, but ever since version 4.1, at least they're not that punishing anymore. Cause usually when people DC, the match actually ends up not counting. Okay, and with that, my update videos are concluded. If you haven't watched the first one yet and wanna check it out, feel free to do so. Otherwise, thank you for watching my video. If you'd like, consider liking and maybe even subscribing to my channel. And I upload videos every week, so see you next week if you'd like. Bye bye!